For Module 1, which basically is going to be what we would call Week 1, we're going to cover a few different things. For one, you're going to read the introduction to Mexicanos, a history of Mexicans in the United States. You're going to read the introduction and the first chapter in this book. The introduction gives us sort of a understanding to the approach the author uses to write this book. So what we find is the scholarship when it comes to Mexicano studies and also what he calls Chicano or Chicana studies. And so we find this book approached using the scholarship that is recent, kind of giving a revisionist look at history, of course. He defines some very important terms, what the difference is between some of the terminology used in this field of study, and really situates the textbook within the context of scholarship. So this is helpful to you as a student because then you understand the approach, you understand what the author is intending to do, and he also gives an indication of understanding the broader field of the studies, of the study of Mexican Americans. So read that chapter. This is helpful to us as we, need to understand what our approach is in this particular textbook or collection of chapters. Are important because they give us. He gives us an introduction there to help us understand how it is that we will be approaching the topic ourselves. Really, I could say for this course, we are looking at the topic of Mexican American. The topic of Mexican American studies as a very history of ideas approach. It's historical, but we're also looking at some of the philosophical, religious and cultural ideas that are at work, at play during this development of what it means to be Mexican American. And so in terms of the humanities, we're coming at it from a very historical, history of ideas, kind of philosophical approach. That is why we're looking at it very historically, but we also are coming at it from a fine arts perspective because we're looking at the fine art of film. The documentation of historical events and their ideas and concepts and the representation of Mexican Americans in film is something that is important to consider as we carry out our study ourselves. So that is basically our approach. Again, you could come at this from a totally literary approach. You could look at film, you could look at music. I mean, there's so many different ways in the humanities to approach ethnic studies, but we're going to look at it from a very historical perspective. So you'll get that concept very clearly from the introduction that the author gives in the book. And if you wonder what I'm looking at, I'm just looking at the book here. Just to let you know that's what we're going to see in chapter, the introduction rather, and then we're going to see in chapter 1 a discussion of the Spaniards and the Native Americans from the prehistory to 1521. Now, he also looks at the prehistory of the Spaniards. So as you'll see in that chapter, there's a discussion of the origins of what it means to be Spanish. That being European, there are a multiplicity of cultures, and he traces back even the Spanish history to the prehistory period of 35,000 BCE, which is typically what you find in the study of humanities as we go. When you start a study, when you write a book, when you do a course, you go all the way back to the very beginning. How early can we get? Because we see what's happening today is really just in the line of the trajectory of the human experience, and we try to find out where it all began. So prehistory doesn't really mean there wasn't historical things occurring, but it means before the written record. And so He goes all the way back, looking at before the written record for the Spaniards in Europe, as well as the natives here in the Americas. And he talks about, in Spain, how the Moors and the Visigoths and the Romans occupied the peninsula there where Spain is. And also he then discusses the prehistory of the Americas, looking at the Olmecs, the Zapotecs, the Aztecs, the Maya. So conquering of the Aztecs by Cortez, that's the significance of the 1521, because that is when the fall of Tenochtitlan occurs. So the point, is to say we cannot, fully understand what it even means to be called Mexican American if we don't understand the origins of the Spanish influence. We don't understand the origins of the, Native American influence, the joining of two cultures, the joining of ethnicities. We have to go back all the way as far as we can to see what it was like before the joining occurred. So that is the reason for the early dating there. That's why. And so also to understand this syncretism, this joining of cultures, this conquering of one culture, we're going to look at a film called La Otra Conquista. And the film is subtitled in English, so that's good, right? But the film is really a very interesting movie, and it's about the conquest of the New World and the joining of Catholicism in an attempt to replace the pagan religion of the people. And the film opens up in the scene. They're at the Templo Mayor, and there's, which is in the great Tenochtitlan place that, where the 1521 matters, because that's where the overthrow happens. So we're kind of situated contextually here with this film. It gives us an idea what it would have been like, the events, the slaughter, the mayhem, the violence. But particularly the movie kind of revolves around this character who is really a illegitimate son of the Emperor Montezuma, and he's also a scribe. And so he survives this slaughter that the film opens with by hiding under some dead bodies. And anyway, so let me also warn you, there's some graphic, violent scenes that, it's just violence. It's graphic, it's gory, it's intense. It's also probably pretty accurate in terms of historical accuracy. So, we're not approaching this for purely entertainment reasons. We're looking at this film because it has a historical value. So the guy in the movie is his name is, let me see if I can say it right, Topiltzin, and he's converted by the friar, the fray, and he is given a new name, Tomas. And anyway, so pay attention to that, because really part of what the tension here is, there is an attempt to conquer a people, give them a new religion, replace their old religion. But as we see in the film, it's not that cut and dry. It doesn't really work that way. And that's what I want you to pay attention to. How does the quote-unquote syncretism work? Are they able to bring together these cultures and produce this new thing? What's the give and take? Is it successful? Do they really convert the people? Pay attention to those elements, as I believe they're important to our study and our understanding of what was going on in this time period. And then you'll have a discussion where you'll be able to talk about the film. And if you decide to write your critical analysis over the movie, go right ahead. You'll find a link in the learning module that will take you to that page where you can submit. And then, of course, there is a weekly quiz that will cover the textbook and the film. So with that being said, we'll close this brief introduction to the learning module. Go ahead and do the work in the following pages of the module, and I will see you in the next module.